Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. A few of us are gathering today from NAMI Delaware to talk about coping with grief through the holidays. The holidays are often referred to as the most wonderful time of the year, which it can be, but unfortunately, for many of us, wonderful can easily be replaced with stressful, depressing, lonely, and many other adjectives. There's so much pressure, especially on social media, to have a happy holiday that it can almost make you feel worse when you don't have that holiday cheer. Fortunately and unfortunately, you are not alone if you feel that way. So, the three of us today, we're just going to take a few minutes to discuss the other side of dealing with the holidays. So, before we get started, we're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Nimare Bewu. I am NAMI Delaware's Diversity and Equity Fellow.
Hi, my name is Wes Ingram. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am NAMI Delaware's Programs Manager.
Hi, I'm Jen Jankowski. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm NAMI Delaware's Peer Services Manager.
Awesome. And I forgot to mention my pronouns are she and her as well. All right, so to kick things off, Thanksgiving is next week. And as much as the holiday is focused around family and fun, it's focused around food as well. This can make it extra stressful for anybody with body image issues or an eating disorder. What are some ways to prepare yourself for that day?
So I would say to know your triggers going forward and what to avoid and possibly to share that with others so they don't exacerbate any feelings or emotions that you may have.
Yeah, I think just knowing that there's a lot of food involved and just being kind with yourself, whether or not you engage in those behaviors, just knowing that you're doing your best. Also, just kind of preparing for maybe the comments that people might say. So you might be, talking with family that doesn't know you. You might not be comfortable with telling them that this is something that you struggle with. You might not be at that point yet. So there are actually some really great guides. I think there's one from an organization called like whattosaynow.org, and they have like a holiday guide. It's kind of more geared towards like parents that are trying to like raise their kids out of like diet culture, but they have some really great responses on sort of what do you say to somebody who might be talking about diet or weight in a way that makes you uncomfortable, but also in a way like responding in a way that isn't doesn't seem aggressive or isn't necessarily also like outing you as having an eating disorder.
Would you both say it's beneficial to then, in certain instances, say something to family ahead of time? I would think like Eve, especially maybe. So I'm a little bit of a chicken, and my sister, who's my younger sister, is also like the one who speaks up the most. So sometimes I'll slide to her, like, and say something to her if I'm going into a situation where I feel like I'm going to be uncomfortable, or with my mom, I'm like, "Can you say something? Because I don't want to say something." Like, do you think maybe it's beneficial if you're going to be in a larger family gathering to maybe at least say something to your immediate family so that they can act as sometimes a buffer for you?
I definitely think that it depends on the person because they may not have already come out and expressed the challenges that they're having with their eating disorder.
Or
On the
body
flip
image
side,
issues in
or
general.
body image, yes, yes. Um, on the flip side, I do think there's a way to also educate your family and loved ones beforehand on how to, I have a dog coming in right now, on how to meet someone with compassion during the holiday season as it relates to food. So perhaps making a plug on not making a big issue on what someone is eating. And that may be a little bit of encouragement is okay, but I would always steer towards stay in your lane. So yeah, it definitely depends on the person and my point of view.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and I would say if you have that person in your family, that's definitely a great tactic, and that's honestly really great way to show allyship too, if you're somebody who doesn't necessarily have issues along with body image or struggle with an eating disorder. Even if you don't think anybody else in your family does, you know, if you hear that sort of thing, and you kind of like check out what are great responses to when people are talking like that, then you can kind of just slide in and shut it down if you're comfortable with it. Just in case there is anybody in your family that is kind of, you know, silently struggling.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, you mentioned too, Jen, like having compassion for people. I
Mhm.
think an area that we definitely need to have compassion is when people are dealing with grief. There's
Yeah.
nothing like everybody talking about family and friends to really make you feel the absence of a loved one in your life. And grief comes in all different forms. Sometimes it's literal from death, and sometimes it's metaphorical from distance due to mental disorder symptoms. There's a plethora of reasons for why you could be mourning the loss of somebody. What are some ways to deal with grief during the holidays?
So I think there's a few different ways, and this certainly isn't a comprehensive list, but setting boundaries for yourself and not forcing yourself to participate in what does or doesn't feel right for you. So whether that's attending a holiday party or a family gathering, remembering to check in with yourself and to identify if you are ready or not. Um, and I also think that tuning into your own grief and the emotions surrounding it is important and not to dismiss it. Avoiding it and suppressing it will only lead to a buildup. And so acknowledging what you're feeling is important, and to remind yourself that it's okay and perfectly normal. And lastly, plan ahead to fill those empty holiday roles. So consider who will fill those roles. So if your dad or someone always dressed as Santa, or your aunt cut the turkey, just plan ahead to avoid those unnecessary moments of grief, because it can help make those experiences and moments during the holidays more fluid and enjoyable for yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Jen. And I really love the planning ahead thing, because I think that is can really also be expanded to just in general planning ahead, to thinking like,
Mhm.
you know, if to looking to see what's going on out in the community, that even if you're on your own in, you know, wherever in your location and you're far away from your family, you can do events, and that might, you know, um, fill up some time where you're not really thinking about that. um, and 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 whatnot. And also just remembering that found family is as important as sort of like our biological or like nuclear families. So
Mhm.
while the holidays tend to be focused on mom, dad, kids, and whatnot, even if you're like found family of all your roommates and everything, that counts absolutely as well. Um, and I would also say too, just to, you know, do those internal check-ins with yourself and to know when you need to reach out. There are a lot of really great virtual options right now that make it super easy to just, you know, slide into like a support group or something when you just need to talk to somebody who, or talk to other people who are, you know, struggling with some heavier emotions. And so just kind of seeking those resources out, having them at hand if you need to, if you ever need to use them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jen.
I was just gonna add on just a couple more tips surrounding traditions, because I know those can often, when you lose a loved one or you're mourning for uh, not for any reason, like you mentioned, there's a lot of reasons why someone can be mourning or distressed during the holidays. Um, so always honoring those old traditions and honoring those memories. Um, but then also creating new traditions, because it's okay to move forward and to um, know that whoever it is would want you to enjoy the holidays. So, acknowledging, validating, and then challenging any feelings of guilt that may arise in the process of creating those new traditions is important.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point. And actually, what you both mentioned, sometimes acknowledging and spending time with your friends and realizing that it's okay if they fill the void of family. Like family doesn't always have to be your birth family. And then also, like you said, Jen, creating new traditions to not necessarily replace the old ones, because you don't want to get rid of your old ones, but you want to add on to it, just to keep things enjoyable and to have new things to look forward to. Speaking of looking forward to, though, let's talk about social media, because social media can make it seem like everyone around you is living the perfect life, even though logically we know that's not true. But being surrounded by pictures and videos showing otherwise makes it seem like it is. And while I do look forward to seeing what great things everyone's doing, it can also sometimes make me feel stressed or make me feel down a little bit. So, what are some ways to protect your mental health while viewing social media during the holidays?
So just a couple ways that I'll share is number one, revisiting gratitude. Practicing gratitude can help reframe the comparison and self-judgment that's often elicited from social media. And then also establishing offline boundaries offline and sticking to them. So deciding what's most important to you during the holidays, and then deprioritizing what isn't. And then also scrolling past those posts that may elicit negative emotions. Again, honoring those boundaries that you set for yourself. And it's okay if sometimes you mess up and you do end up looking. It's a journey, and not every day will be perfect. And social media is all consuming right now. So giving yourself the grace when you do find yourself um, finding a flare up in your emotions from social media.
Yeah, definitely finding time to unplug from it is really important. And also just trying to keep in mind like what accounts are making you feel like that. And if you need to unfollow them or mute them, that's perfectly okay as well. I know that especially with social media culture, it can feel really hard to do that sometimes. Like there's kind of an obligation to be following certain people and whatnot. But at the same time, like if it's affecting your mental health, then it's definitely more important to prioritize that versus this connection that you might have with that person. And I also really love to remind myself all the time that what you're seeing on social media, like Namade was saying, is not the whole picture. Like those are just perfectly crafted, curated moments to be as positive as, perfect as possible. And while those people might be having a great time and whatnot, that's not their 24/7. And you never know what's happening behind the posts and the pictures. So not to assume that just because this person has this really great, vacation or whatnot in that moment, that means that their life is just automatically so much better than yours, and yours is worth nothing. Like it's really easy to spiral when you're by yourself and getting in your own head. But everybody is going through a whole lot, especially right now, especially for the past few years. So just giving yourself grace and reminding yourself that there's no such thing as perfection.
Absolutely.
What you
Something
see
I always
online
like
is
to.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say something I always like to remind myself year round is that social media is someone's highlight reel, and you can't compare your real life to someone else's highlight reel. It's never going to
Hmm.
match up. All the little moments in between that are lived moments. You're not seeing
Hmm.
that. Most people aren't showing that stuff. I mean, I show all that stuff in stories, but some of us overshare. Everyone else with good boundaries does not overshare all of that. They're only going to give you their highlight reel. So don't compare your everyday to someone else's highlight reel.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I have nothing else to add.
Sorry, but I'm glad we're
No,
in
you're
sync
good.
on that. So the stress, like as if the stress of the holidays wasn't enough, we're talking Thanksgiving, Christmas, and actually there's a ton of holidays. Those are the main ones that come to my mind, but there's a reason we say happy holidays, not Merry Christmas, because there's so many holidays for so many religions during this time of year. So we're all kind of going through something and dealing with some type of holiday stress. And if that wasn't enough, it's also, we had daylight savings time. So now is also the time of the year where many of us are suffering or dealing with SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder. We don't really have control over the weather, but what are some things that we can personally do to diminish the negative effects of the weather on our emotions?
So Sorry, I was just going to start off with getting as much natural sunlight as possible because it's been proven to help, and especially since that's a main factor in why people may be struggling with seasonal affective disorder. And I'm guilty of that too. Um, Getting as much sunlight, getting out there, it can be hard, 100%, if you're feeling or if you are in a depressive episode, and to not feel guilty if that's something that you can't do. Um, but keeping that in mind as a possible way to alleviate any feelings you may be having, and then also taking steps to deal with the stress. So practicing those daily relaxation techniques and doing something you enjoy, or even used to every day. And again, it's no fault of your own if you're not able to do this every single day, but being able to think about it is the first step. And and reaching out again to your family or loved ones, because they can definitely be a support line for you. Or there are support groups. NAMI offers a couple of support groups that are wonderful and are there to help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my number one tip too for seasonal affect disorder is definitely like going to your doctor, like especially if you feel like it hits you really hard. Since we don't have control over the weather, but we do kind of have some ideas on how that weather affects us, and we have some, medical things that we could discuss with our doctor on being able to kind of navigate that. So, especially since it's getting really cold, so it's a lot harder to be outside for long periods of time. So, talking with your doctor about something like a vitamin D supplement might be helpful. There's a lot of vitamin kind of stuff going on that can really lead to mood effects. So, just checking up on that, checking up on the lamp that does the lights. I want to say it's a UV light, but
It's
I'm
a
not.
happy lamp. Yeah, you took the
Yeah,
words out of my mouth. I was going to suggest that too. Like I have one of those, and it's a lifesaver.
yeah, just stuff like that. Our physical health is like completely linked with our mental health, and we have to kind of take care of both in order to keep that balance. So just also, following up on and seeing if there's anything physical that might be of help that will end up boosting your mood as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely recommend that happy light. If you haven't made your Christmas or Hanukkah wish list yet, put it on there because there are some times where it's just so dark and it just makes you feel a little bit better. The vitamin D recommendation is huge. That's helped me a little bit. And then also that sunlight, because all of that, like nothing can really replace natural sunlight. So for me, even though I'm a night owl by nature, I force myself during the winter to be more of an early bird because I know that's like my little bit of sunshine. And while I would like to sleep in, if I do, then my day becomes so much smaller because it's dark now by like 4 o'clock. So I force myself to be up at like 7 to just give myself, even if it's just seeing the sun through the windows, I feel like it helps a little bit.
Yeah.
So, while we're trying to like maintain and take care of our mental health with SAD and take care of our mental health with the holidays, what are some general tips to help us maintain our mental health overall through the holidays?
Definitely manage your time and don't try to do too much. Again, respecting your own boundaries, and prioritizing your own time and activities, uh, activities that bring you joy, is a huge one.
Putting yourself first and kind of your own needs first isn't selfish, even though a lot of us kind of feel that way. And that is a huge part of self-care, is just knowing that, you do need to prioritize yourself. Just accepting that you need to take that time to do self-care, and also just, practicing kindness to yourself, and self-compassion can be is really important.
I also think that going back to gratitude, it has been shown to improve mental health tremendously. So writing a list and offering thanks. This time of year is a good time to reflect back on what we are grateful for and those who've been in your life and have supported you. With that, I also think that self-affirmations are a very good way to keep you grounded and to remind yourself that you are worthy, that you are loved during this stressful time. So one thing that I've done in the past is I've had index cards that I've written affirmations on, and I revisit pretty frequently when I do find myself doubting my own abilities and just self in general. And even having your loved ones write a card for you that you can revisit would be a really good way to remind you that you're not alone during this time.
That's a good idea. It's also like a good Thanksgiving Day activity. I don't know about the rest of you, but
Mm-hmm.
my mother always wants to play games, and anything I can do to get out of Monopoly, I'll do. So I like that idea. I think
Yeah.
it would be a great addition to it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with that, I think setting and worrying about setting and maintaining your boundaries, I think is very big for you and your family. And even though sometimes it's hard, if what you're going through or what you like where you are mentally means that you want to be alone, like sometimes it's okay to choose that. Sometimes it's good to push past it and be a part of what's going on, but sometimes it's okay to say, like, I need to step away and not be involved with this holiday because it'll be too much for me and push me over the edge, and that's okay as well.
Yeah. One last thing that I want to add is knowing and recognizing your stressors, and trying to, again, avoid them if you can, or informing those around you what may may lead to a flare up in your symptoms or emotions so that they're aware of what to steer clear from. It's important to keep on looking out for yourself during this time.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And Jen, you also mentioned making a list for gratitude. One
Mm-hmm.
holiday that we didn't really touch on that is during this holiday season is New Year's. And like you said, we're doing reflecting. And I have a bad
Mm-hmm.
habit of reflecting on all the things I didn't do and all the things I didn't accomplish, which can send you
Yeah.
spiraling in another way. So I think it's really important to take the time to make a list of all the things you have done, the things you have
Mm-hmm.
accomplished. And you'll be surprised that that list is probably more full than you would think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, overall, I mean, I feel like there's so much more we could talk about with this topic, but hopefully this brief discussion has helped you all feel like a little less stressed and a little bit less alone if you are struggling during the holiday season. And the truth is, you're never really alone, especially with NAMI here. We have lots of groups and support groups and discussions that are available for you to partake in. And we can name a few. Like, I know that I run Sharing Hope Community Conversations, which is usually the last Thursday of each month. Next week or after Thanksgiving, it's on Wednesday. But we have different topics, and it's just a place for people in the BIPOC community to come together and talk about mental health and the things that impact us. And Wes, your part, or you know of some of groups that we have?
Yeah, so actually, I help run the LGBTQ plus YA discussion group that for November, it was actually just last night, but we do every third Thursday at 6 p.m. So I hope that I might see some new people next month.
And we do have our peer support groups too. I don't know off the top of my head right now when they meet, and I do not host those, but that's a goal for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So tons of
Yeah,
resources available.
absolutely. And you can visit all of them at namide.org. And it shows the different groups as well as classes that we have for you to learn more that we offer to the community. So we hope our discussion has helped. If you're watching this in the aftermath, we still want to know, we've had some great comments in here. Phoebe said, thank you so much for sharing your thoughtful, productive ways to show up for loved ones around the holidays. Annie said, yes, I have my light and love it, and I've taken vitamin D for years. Highly recommend. We love seeing your tips and your tips and tricks like that. So even if you're watching this later, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, please leave comments and let us know how how get yourself through the holidays or your family and friends. We'd love to know more. But thank you so much for your time today and for joining us.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.